Some people seem to almost effortlessly attract wealth. It's like they have some secret code, or maybe they were just born lucky. While, most of us feel like we're stuck on a treadmill running hard just to stay put.
It's definitely the big question, isn't it? And the easy answers, the ones that jump out, are always external. Oh, it's luck or destiny. Maybe they inherited it, or they just know the right people.
Right. The usual suspects.
Exactly. But when you really dig into the research, behavioral science, the habits of people who build lasting financial freedom, you find something else entirely. It's rarely about external fortune.
So it's not about luck.
Almost never. It's fundamentally internal. It comes down to mindset, daily habits, and crucially, this willingness to choose the uncomfortable path now for a benefit later.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Let's really get to the heart of it today. Our mission for this deep dive is to, cut through the usual advice and explore the really honest reasons why most people, even people earning good money, never quite reach true financial freedom. We've looked at a whole range of sources, and they don't just diagnose the problem. They seem to lay out a kind of blueprint for wealth based on, 10 key mindset shifts.
That's right, 10 essential shifts. And the goal here isn't just understanding, it's about potential transformation for you, the listener. We want you to walk away seeing those maybe subtle, often unconscious forces that keep people stuck in cycles of debt or just stagnation.
And crucially, how to break free.
Precisely. To see the levers you can actually pull, starting now, to change your financial trajectory.
Yeah.
If we had to boil all the sources down to one core conflict, it'd be this. Financial freedom isn't really a reward for just working hard. It's more like the inevitable result of consistently making uncomfortable choices today. Choices that benefit you massively, maybe generationally, down the line.
That's a really interesting way to put it. Wealth requires being uncomfortable. Because that seems to fly directly in the face of, everything society pushes on us. Comfort is king.
Right, it absolutely does. Which brings us straight into the first and maybe the most powerful mental block people face.
Let's start right there with the comfort trap. Our sources are pretty clear. This is probably the single biggest barrier stopping people from building wealth. Everyone says they want the freedom money brings, but they seem really unwilling to put up with the discomfort, the sacrifice needed to actually get there.
It's a deep-seated conflict, almost primal. Think about it. The moment we have our basic needs met, roof over our head, food, safety, the brain kind of sighs in relief and says, okay, mission accomplished, we're safe now, don't waste energy.
Right. Conserve resources, stay safe.
Exactly. But building wealth, that requires pushing beyond basic safety. It means spending significant energy, often on things that aren't immediately rewarding. It demands delaying gratification.
So break down this comfort trap for us. What are those everyday things, the short-term pleasures people refuse to give up? The stuff that seems harmless but actually eats away at their financial future.
Oh, it's the classic stuff. It's the death by 1,000 cuts, financially speaking. We're talking about, all those subscription services piling up each month, or the daily fancy coffee habit. It seems small, right? $7 a day.
Yeah, it's just coffee.
But compound that over a year. That's easily over $2,000, maybe $2,500. Money that could have been put to work, invested.
Wow, when you put it like that.
And it's also the constant need for the newest gadget, the latest phone, or just that refusal to maybe, trade some weekend downtime for focused work on a side project, something that could actually generate income.
Things that feel normal, things everyone else does.
Precisely. They aren't disasters on their own, individually. But taken together, they create the psychological dependence on feeling good right now. Instant gratification becomes the default.
I think a key point the sources make here is the difference between working harder and working differently. Because lots of people are already working really hard, right? 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometimes. And they're still stuck.
That's exactly it. They're working hard, often incredibly hard, but they're doing it within the existing system, the system of trading their time directly for money.
The standard paycheck model.
Right. Working differently means challenging that whole structure. It means accepting, maybe for a specific period, could be 2 years, could be 5, that you have to consciously, maybe even aggressively, cut back on the comforts that everyone else just accepts as normal.
So it's a temporary phase of discomfort.
Ideally, yes. You shift your focus. Instead of just maintaining your current lifestyle, you're actively working to restructure how your income comes in. Building assets, not just earning a wage.
And the really sneaky part, like you mentioned, is that steady paycheck. It pays the bills, you've got Netflix, maybe some video games, endless social media. and your brain just settles. It thinks, hey, I'm doing okay.
Mm-hmm. That's the illusion.
It confuses just surviving, being comfortable, with actually thriving and growing.
That's the exact mechanism of stagnation. You feel just secure enough that you avoid the stress that comes with pushing for real growth. But genuine wealth, the kind that creates freedom, it's often generated in periods of, let's say, constructive tension.
Destructive tension, I like that.
Wealth doesn't just fall into the lap of the comfortable. It tends to gravitate towards those who are still in some way hungry. People who maintain a sense of urgency and need to build, even if technically they have enough to get by right now.
So they almost manufacture discomfort.
In a way, yes. They deliberately create an environment that forces them to innovate, to grow, to keep pushing. It's about staying slightly off balance intentionally.
Okay, but maintaining that intentional discomfort, that becomes almost impossible if you fall into the next big trap we identified. The salary illusion, or maybe we should call it the golden gauge.
Oh, this one is huge. And it catches so many people, especially those in fields where salaries can be quite high. Think tech, finance, medicine, law. A big paycheck absolutely does not automatically equal wealth.
That seems counterintuitive, though.
It does, but the data backs it up. Our sources point to figures showing something like 70% of high-income earners, people making, say, over $150,000 a year, still report living paycheck to paycheck, or they're carrying significant debt that cancels out the high income.
70%. Wow.
Yeah. The high salary just ends up funding a bigger, maybe more comfortable, but still very restrictive cage, the golden cage.
How does that actually happen if you're earning, say, $200K?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that solve most money problems?
You'd think so. But it happens almost without people noticing, through something called lifestyle creep.
Ah, yes. Lifestyle creep.
You get the raise, the big promotion, and immediately the little voice inside says, I deserve this. I worked hard for this. Which might be true.
Sure. Reward yourself.
And that feeling justifies upgrading everything. Suddenly, you need the bigger house with the larger mortgage. You deserve the luxury SUV with the hefty monthly payment, the expensive clothes to look the part, maybe private school for the kids. Your spending automatically rises to meet or exceed your new income.
So you're spending money primarily to look successful, confusing the appearance of wealth with the reality of it.
Exactly. Your gross income might have doubled. Fantastic. But if your fixed expenses, your mortgage, car payments, loan repayments also doubled at the same time, your actual freedom, your net position hasn't improved at all. You might even be worse off, more trapped.
Just a higher paid employee, but still an employee.
Yeah.
Maybe even more beholden to the job because the stakes are higher.
Precisely. You're now just serving a bigger set of fixed costs. The sources we looked at are really clear on this. Real wealth isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much you own.
Ownership. Okay.
Yeah. Owning assets. Things that appreciate in value or, even better, generate passive income for you. Income pays the bills day to day. Assets are what actually make you wealthy, what give you freedom.
Okay, let's get specific then. Trading time for money is the standard model. If I want to shift towards ownership, what does that practically mean? How do the wealthy use money to get more time instead of the other way around?
They buy things that most people see as either too complex or maybe just too much hassle. Things like rental properties that generate monthly cash flow, or they buy shares in solid, profitable businesses, either private companies or dividend-paying stocks on the public market. They might invest in managed funds or create things like digital products or intellectual property that pay royalties over time.
So things that work for you.
Exactly. Assets are like employees that work 24/7, generating cash flow even while you're sleeping or on vacation. The average person trades their limited, finite resource time for money. The wealthy use money as a tool to buy assets, and those assets generate more time for them by producing income passively. This frees up their energy and focus to build even more.
It's a complete flip of the usual script, isn't it? And this pressure to keep up appearances, to maintain the lifestyle inside that golden cage, it just gets amplified massively by the next thing on our list, the comparison trap, which the sources rightly call the wealth killer.
Oh, the comparison trap is brutal in the modern world, especially with social media. It's like a nonstop, perfectly curated highlight reel of everyone else's apparent success.
Yeah, everyone's on vacation, buying new cars, living their best life. Or so it seems.
Exactly. It creates this powerful, almost inescapable illusion that everyone else is doing better, living this amazing, effortless life. And that triggers a really strong primal urge in us, the need to spend money, maybe money we don't have, just to try and catch up or project a similar image.
Keeping up with the Joneses. but on a global digital scale.
Precisely. And it's based on a standard that's not even real most of the time.
But the truly wealthy, the ones quietly building, they operate differently. They don't seem to need that external validation, that highlight reel.
They absolutely don't. And here's the kicker, the uncomfortable truth that comes out in the research. A huge number of the people you see online flaunting extreme luxury, the cars, the watches, the trips, they aren't actually wealthy in the sense of owning productive assets.
But what are they doing?
They're often masters of appearing wealthy. They might be leveraging debt heavily, using short-term financing, or honestly, just getting really good at taking photos next to things they don't own or won't keep. They're consuming status symbols, not building equity.
So the golden cage gets built by lifestyle creep internally,
Mm-hmm.
and then the comparison trap, fueled by social media externally, just keeps adding pressure, pushing you towards more spending, more overhead, just to keep up appearances for people you probably don't even know.
You've nailed it. That's the cycle. Whereas the truly wealthy, they tend to operate much more quietly. They build businesses, they invest, often without any fanfare. They let their results, their growing equity and freedom, speak for themselves over time.
They need to broadcast it.
They don't need to spend their capital trying to impress people who ultimately don't matter to their financial goals. Once you can internalize that you don't need to spend to impress, you can finally start making that critical shift away from just consuming towards creating and investing.
Okay, moving into section 2 now. We're shifting from those external societal traps more towards the internal psychology of money. And this seems like the absolute clearest dividing line in all the material we looked at. The consumer mindset versus the investor mindset.
It really is. It boils down to that moment the money hits your bank account. Payday. What's the instant reaction?
Right, what's the default thought?
For the average person, the middle-class default, that money immediately represents options for consumption. The first thought is, okay, what can I buy? What bill can I pay? What little comfort or upgrade can I get now? Spending is the default pathway.
Okay, makes sense. And the investor, the wealth builder, completely different default.
Completely different. Their first almost automatic thought process is, how can I deploy this capital? How can I use this money to acquire or build an asset that will generate more capital down the road?
Seeing money as a tool, not just as spending power.
Exactly. They see every dollar not just as something to spend for comfort, but as a potential employee, a little soldier they can send out to work for them. The sources are absolutely definitive on this. Your financial life only starts to fundamentally change when you consciously rewire that default brain response from consumer to investor.
So to make that shift, we really have to get our heads around this idea of value erosion. It's not just about buying less stuff, is it? It's about stopping the purchase of things that actively lose value the second you buy them. Can you expand on that? It feels like more than just depreciation.
Oh, it is. Depreciation is part of it, but value erosion is broader. It's the total cost of owning liabilities that take money out of your pocket. Let's use the classic new car example again.
Okay.
The moment you drive it off the lot, boom, it might lose 10%, 20% of its value instantly. That's straightforward depreciation.
Right. Everyone knows that.
But value erosion also includes the sales tax you paid, upfront, money gone. The higher insurance premiums you now have to pay for a newer, maybe fancier vehicle, the ongoing maintenance costs, especially for complex cars. You pay a chunk of money for something that then proceeds to actively suck more money out of your life month after month and provides zero financial return. It's purely a depreciating utility or status symbol.
Whereas the investor, the wealth builder, is deliberately buying things that do the opposite. They either produce cash flow, or they appreciate in value, or maybe even both. And sometimes they come with tax advantages too, creating a positive cycle.
Exactly right. They are acquiring productive assets. You buy a small piece of a good company, a share of stock. You're buying a claim on its future profits and growth. You buy a rental property, you're acquiring an asset that hopefully provides monthly rental income and has the potential for long-term appreciation.
The whole focus shifts.
Completely. It shifts from how much enjoyment can I get from this object today to how much future income or equity can this asset generate for me tomorrow.
Okay. But choosing that investor path, the creator path, it's not always smooth sailing, is it? There are going to be bumps, which brings us directly to another huge emotional barrier, the fear of risk.
Risk is a big one. The average person spends a huge amount of energy trying to create perfect security. Often that means clinging to the same job for decades, maybe even a job they don't love, because it feels like a safety net. It provides predictability.
The known quantity.
Right. But our sources pose a really challenging question here. How truly secure is it to spend your entire working life building someone else's dream? Having your income, your family's security, completely dependent on the decisions made by a handful of people on a corporate board you'll never meet.
That definitely reframes the whole idea of safety, doesn't it? If you lose that safe job, your income goes to zero overnight.
Yeah.
It sounds like the wealthy view risk very differently, not as something to be avoided at all costs, but maybe as a tool, a lever.
They absolutely do. They understand fundamentally that risk is inseparable from growth. You simply cannot achieve outsized returns or build significant wealth without taking on some level of risk. But, and this is critical, they aren't reckless gamblers.
Okay.
The sources are very specific. Wealth builders take calculated risks.
Calculated, what does that mean in practice?
It means they do their homework. They spend significant time researching the market, understanding the dynamics. They model potential outcomes, best case, worst case, likely case. They actively look for ways to mitigate the known downsides, maybe through insurance or diversification or specific deal structures. And then, after all that preparation, they act decisively.
So it's not an emotional decision. It's analytical.
Very much so. They treat risk assessment almost like an engineering problem or a mathematical equation, not like a vague, scary feeling in their gut.
But, okay, for the average person listening, maybe someone with a family, mortgage, real responsibilities, what does calculated look like? How do you measure that risk without potentially blowing up your life if it goes wrong? Where's the line?
That's a great question, and it's about managing the amount of risk. It's about optionality. You generally don't bet the entire farm on one single venture. That's rarely calculated. That's gambling. Instead, maybe you allocate a specific defined percentage of your investment capital, perhaps 5%, maybe 10% towards opportunities that have higher risk, but also significantly higher potential reward. You go into it knowing that losing that initial amount is a possibility, maybe even part of the tuition fee for learning.
Seeing potential losses as tuition. That links to the next idea, treating failure as feedback. That psychological response seems crucial.
It's absolutely crucial. This is where you really see the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, which a lot of the behavioral sources talk about, applied directly to money.
How so?
When the average person tries something, maybe a side hustle, investing in a stock that drops, launching a small business idea and it doesn't work out, they lose money.
Yeah.
What's the typical reaction?
They feel terrible. Maybe embarrassed. They think, I'm no good at this.
Exactly. They interpret that loss as proof that they aren't smart enough, or proof that the system is rigged against them, or just proof that they should give up and stick to what they know. They internalize the failure completely.
And they retreat. Back to the safety, maybe back to the golden cage.
Precisely. The wealth builder, or someone developing that mindset, reacts differently. They externalize the failure. They immediately go into analysis mode. Why did that stock drop? Was it the market or my analysis? What was flawed in the business model? Which assumption I made turned out to be wrong.
Looking for the lesson.
Yes. They treat the loss, painful as it might be, as an expensive but valuable data point. It provides immediate feedback that informs their next attempt, their next investment, their next venture. It actually increases their probability of success next time around. They see setbacks not as stop signs, but as course corrections, part of the game.
Expecting bumps in the road.
They expect them as part of the price of admission to playing a bigger game than just being an employee.
Okay, this whole section, understanding risk, learning from failure, shifting to an investor mindset, it all kind of assumes a certain level of financial understanding. Which brings us to, well, the elephant in the room for many people. The lack of financial education. It feels like the system itself often fails people here.
It's a massive gap. A systemic failure, really, designed for a different time. Our traditional education system, K through 12, even university often, is brilliant at teaching certain things. Compliance, following instructions, performing tasks, memorizing historical facts. It's largely designed to create good, reliable employees.
Right, people who fit into the existing structures.
Exactly. But it fundamentally fails, usually, to teach the practical mechanics of building financial freedom. Think about it. People graduate, sometimes with advanced degrees, but have almost zero functional knowledge of sophisticated tax planning. How to use debt strategically to acquire assets instead of just liabilities, how complex credit markets work, or the real gut-level understanding of compound growth over decades.
So if the system doesn't teach it, The education has to be self-driven. You have to go out and find it yourself. You have to be actively curious.
You absolutely must. The responsibility lands squarely on the individual. You have to decide to pursue financial literacy independently.
What does that look like?
It means reading the seminal books on investing in behavioral finance. It means listening to resources like this deep dive, hopefully. It means actively studying people who have actually built wealth, especially from scratch. The entrepreneurs, the focused investors, the innovators, not just relying on advice from people who haven't done it or who only inherited money.
But the weird thing is, the information isn't hidden, is it? It's out there.
Yeah.
The libraries, the internet,
Yeah.
it's accessible.
It's everywhere. And yet, this is the really sad part. We see this tragic trade-off happening every single day. So many people will readily spend hours, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours a day passively scrolling through social media feeds or binge-watching entertainment that honestly just drains their energy and provides no lasting value.
Yeah, the endless scroll.
But they'll claim they don't have time to dedicate even 30 focused minutes a week to actually learning the basic rules of how money works, how taxes impact them, how to set up a simple, effective investment plan.
Wow. That's a stark comparison.
It is. And because they choose to remain ignorant, essentially, about the fundamental rules of the financial game, they're almost destined to stay stuck on the sidelines, unable to make that crucial shift from being just a consumer to becoming an investor and creator.
It really is a daily choice, isn't it? Choose the immediate comfort and distraction now, or choose the effort of learning that leads to knowledge and freedom later. Okay, let's move into the final section, which is all about time. And this is where the difference between those who build lasting wealth and, well, almost everyone else becomes incredibly clear. The first point here is that the average person often suffers from no long-term vision.
The difference in time horizons is just staggering, really. When you look at how people operate day to day, the average person is thinking in very short loops. What do I need to do today, this week? Maybe they're thinking ahead to the next paycheck or the quarterly bonus if they get one.
Managing the immediate.
Exactly. Their focus is on managing today's expenses, maybe planning the next vacation, securing the next short-term pleasure or relief. Wealth builders, or those cultivating that mindset, operate on a completely different clock. They're thinking in decades.
Decades, really?
Yes. They are actively making plans and decisions today based on where they want to be 10, 20, even 30 years from now. They have a clear picture of that long-term future, and it guides their actions in the present.
And that short-term focus most people have, that's what fuels the constant search for the quick fix.
Right.
The hot stock tip,
Yeah.
the crypto that's going to the moon, the lottery ticket.
The get-rich-quick mentality.
Because they want the result now.
But wealth, real sustainable wealth, it just doesn't seem to work like that. It's slow, it's often boring, and the real magic happens gradually, almost when you're not looking.
You've hit it exactly. The first few years of consistent investing, of building a business, honestly, they are often profoundly unexciting from a results perspective. The numbers move slowly.
Not very Instagrammable. Definitely not. Wealth builds primarily through the power of compounding growth. And compounding is inherently nonlinear. It starts slow, then curves upwards exponentially over time. You earn growth on your initial money, fine. But then you start earning growth on the growth.
The snowball effect.
Precisely. But if you're constantly dipping into that snowball for immediate spending, or if you get discouraged and stop rolling it because it's not huge after just a year or two, you never give that silent, steady, incredibly powerful force the time it needs to work its magic.
Let's make that concrete. Can you give us a clear example? Because the math here can be really surprising, showing just how much difference those early years make.
Sure. Let's take a simple common scenario. Imagine two people. Both decide to invest $500 every single month. And let's assume they both earn a reasonable average annual return of, say, 8%.
Okay, $500 a month, 8% return.
Now, person A starts doing this diligently at age 25. Person B thinks, I've got time, and starts 10 years later at age 35. Both invest consistently until age 65.
So the only difference is person B waited 10 years to start.
That's the only difference. Now, fast forward to age 65. Person A, who started at 25, their portfolio would be worth approximately $1.6 million.
Wow. Okay. And person B?
Person B, who started just 10 years later at 35, they'd have about $700,000.
Whoa. That's less than half.
Less than half. Think about that. Person A only invested an extra $60,000 in total over those first 10 years. 500 month by 12 months by 10 years. But because they started earlier, they ended up with nearly $900,000 more in the end.
That is absolutely staggering. It wasn't just the extra 60K, it was the time that money had to grow.
It's entirely down to those first 10 years of compounded. That's the silent growth phase where the magic begins. Person A's early contributions started generating returns, and then those returns started generating their own returns, creating that exponential curve that person B, starting later, simply could never catch up to, no matter how much they saved later on.
So the focus has to shift away from just how much did I make this month?
Yes. It has to shift from that transactional thinking, how much income did I get now, towards systematic building. It leads to that crucial reframing question the long-term thinker asks.
Why is?
Instead of asking, how can I make an extra $10,000 this month, they ask, how can I build a durable system or acquire a reliable asset that generates $10,000 every month consistently, predictably for the next 10 years or 20 years?
It's the difference between hunting and farming. Hunting gets you a meal today.
Exactly. Farming builds a sustainable food source for the future. It's about building infrastructure that yields results over and over again. And farming, as any farmer knows, requires enormous patience, which directly combats that culture of instant gratification we talked about.
Yeah, we live in an I want it now world. Fast food, next day delivery, instant access to information. It feels like that whole mindset works directly against the slow process of wealth building.
It completely undermines it. It poisons the well, so to speak. The story of Warren Buffett is often used here, and for good reason. It's the ultimate illustration. The sources we looked at often highlight this amazing statistic. Something like 99% of Warren Buffett's entire net worth was accumulated after his 50th birthday.
99% after 50.
Think about that. That colossal fortune wasn't the result of some brilliant move he made suddenly in his 50s or 60s. It was almost entirely the result of decades of consistent investment, allowing that compounding curve to finally hit its steep, exponential stride. For him, patience wasn't just a virtue, it was literally the engine of his wealth.
But most people don't have that kind of patience. They quit too soon. They mistake that initial slow growth phase for failure.
That's the most common mistake, absolutely. They start a business, maybe a side project. If it doesn't blow up and generate huge profits within, say, 6 months or a year, what do?
They give up. Say it didn't work. Move on to the next shiny object.
Exactly. They label it a failure and pivot, often destroying all the foundational work, the learning, the initial traction they might have actually achieved. Or they start investing. Maybe the market dips, or they only see small single-digit returns after the first year and they lose faith. They stop contributing. It's not working fast enough.
I can't see the long game.
They fail to appreciate that those early years are primarily about building the engine, laying the foundation, learning the ropes. It's not about harvesting the massive results yet. Real, lasting wealth requires sustained effort over multiple years, sometimes many years, and a deep, almost quiet faith in the eventual, unstoppable power of compounding.
Okay, so while you're being patient, building your engine, farming your assets, you're also existing in a social world. And that environment matters hugely, doesn't it? Which brings us to the potential toxicity of the circle of average.
This one can be really tough for people to hear, let alone act on. It's rooted in that idea often called the law of 5 or something similar. Yeah, the concept is that your income, your habits, your core beliefs about money and success, even things like your health and fitness, tend to become the average of the 5 people you spend the most significant amount of time with, your closest circle.
Oof, that's potentially terrifying, especially if your circle isn't exactly aiming high financially, or if they have negative views about wealth or ambition.
It's what you could call contagious mediocrity. Think about it. If your closest friends are constantly complaining about being broke but never take action, if they spend every paycheck on stuff that loses value, if their biggest ambition is just making it to Friday or surviving until retirement,
that energy is bound to rub off.
It inevitably rubs off. You will unconsciously start to calibrate your own expectations, your own ambitions, down to match the prevailing attitude of your peer group. It becomes psychologically very difficult to rise significantly above the level of your immediate environment if that environment is constantly pulling you back towards the average.
So the implication is, the wealthy, or those building wealth, make very deliberate, maybe even sometimes ruthless choices about who they allow into that inner circle.
They absolutely do. They actively curate their environment. They understand the power of association. They seek out people who challenge them, who make them think bigger.
People who inspire them?
Yes, people who inspire them, who hold them accountable to higher standards. Perhaps people who have already achieved the kind of success or freedom they're aiming for. They get that success breeds success, just like negativity breeds negativity. Both are highly contagious.
So managing your social environment is as important as managing your money.
In many ways, yes. Sometimes the single most impactful step you can take towards financial freedom is to consciously, intentionally start spending less time with people who drain your ambition and more time with people who fuel it. Even if that means gently, respectfully outgrowing some long-standing friendships.
That's a hard truth. Okay, finally, we get to what might be the ultimate roadblock. The thing that stops most people, even if they know everything else we've talked about. Excuses over action.
Excuses. They're the mind's ultimate defense mechanism, aren't they? They're the firewall.
Oh, so.
They protect us. They protect the individual from having to actually face the discomfort, the effort, the potential for failure that inevitably comes with trying to change your circumstances or grow. If you can come up with a good reason why you can't start.
I don't have time. I don't have the money. I'm just not lucky like that.
Exactly. If you can articulate those reasons convincingly, especially to yourself, then you're essentially absolved. You get let off the hook. You don't have to take the uncomfortable action. The excuse justifies the inaction.
Okay, let's tackle those big three excuses head on, using the mindset from the source material. First one, I don't have time.
The classic. The truth is, time is never found. It has to be made. Everyone, the billionaire CEO, the single parent working 2 jobs, everyone gets the same 168 hours in a week. How you prioritize those hours reveals what you truly value.
So it's about choices.
It's entirely about choices. The person serious about building wealth doesn't wait for a free hour to magically appear. They conduct a ruthless audit of where their time is actually going, the hours spent scrolling social media, the passive TV watching, the unproductive meetings, and they consciously reclaim some of those minutes or hours. They carve out dedicated wealth-building time for learning, planning, or working on their asset-building project.
They make the time. Okay, excuse number 2, I don't have the money. I need capital to start.
Another big one. And the counter mindset here is that money, significant starting capital, is also rarely found. It's created. Usually it's created by solving problems for people or by providing value that the market is willing to pay for.
So waiting for a windfall is the wrong approach.
Completely. If you wait until you have a big lump sum of cash saved up before you start investing or building, chances are you'll never start. The sources consistently emphasize starting small, starting now, with whatever you have. Can you find $50 a month to invest? Can you start a service-based side business with practically zero overhead?
Focus on creating value first, not on the lack of capital.
Exactly. Shift the focus from the lack of money you have to the creation of value you can offer. The money often follows the value.
Okay, and the last big excuse. I'm just not lucky.
Yeah, luck. The sources tend to define luck very differently, not as random chance, but largely as the point where preparation meets opportunity.
Preparation meets opportunity.
Think about it. The person who is constantly learning, reading, studying their field, building their skills, expanding their network, they are essentially preparing the soil. They are making themselves ready. When an opportunity arises, a market shift, a new connection, a chance encounter, they are prepared to recognize it and seize it.
And to outsiders, it looks like they just got lucky.
Right. Wow, they were in the right place at the right time. But the person who stays passive, who doesn't prepare, who doesn't build their skills or network, they might be standing in the exact same right place at the right time, but the opportunity sails right past them because they weren't prepared to see it or act on it. They didn't get unlucky. They were simply unprepared.
So the real takeaway here is about starting versus just talking. It's the fundamental difference between those who actually build something and those who just dream about it or complain about why they can't. They're waiting for that perfect moment.
The mythical perfect moment.
When they finally have enough money, or they feel they know enough, or the stars align perfectly. A moment that basically never arrives.
It never arrives because the reality for almost everyone who succeeds is that they started with deficits. They didn't have enough time, they didn't have enough money, they certainly didn't have all the knowledge they needed. The absolutely essential first step is just imperfect action.
Start where you are with what you have.
Exactly. You start with what you've got right now. You learn as you go, through trial and, yes, through error and failure. You refuse to let those convenient excuses become the permanent wall between your current reality and the financial freedom you claim you want to build. Every single day you choose an excuse over taking even one small action, you're actively reinforcing your current financial situation. You're choosing to stay put. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really detailed and maybe for some a pretty challenging deep dive, but it lays out a clear blueprint focused entirely on those internal mindset shifts needed for financial freedom.
Let's just quickly recap the 4 big trade-offs we discussed, the core choices that seem to separate those who build lasting wealth from, well, pretty much everyone else.
Absolutely. First, we talked about the necessity of choosing growth over comfort, being willing to step outside that safety zone.
Right.
Second, understanding you need to choose calculated risk and learning from failure over the illusion of perfect safety. Embracing setbacks as data.
Third, that fundamental shift from a consumption mindset to a creation and investor mindset. Using money to build, not just to spend.
Crucial.
And finally, the deep-seated discipline required to choose patience and a long-term vision over the constant lure of instant gratification, playing the long game.
And the really empowering part, the good news in all of this, as we've stressed throughout, is that these aren't personality traits you're born with. They're not fixed.
Not at all.
They are mindsets. They are behaviors. And because they are learned, they can be unlearned and they can be consciously changed. You can start making different choices today. Wealth really does start in your head, in your daily decisions, long before it shows up significantly in your bank account or investment portfolio.
Couldn't agree more. And the ultimate goal here, as all the research and data seem to reinforce, isn't really about chasing that get-rich-quick fantasy. That path often leads to speculation and big losses.
Right. It's more sustainable.
Exactly. The real objective is to build wealth that is resilient, that's systematic, and that ultimately provides the most valuable thing of all: the freedom to control your own time, your most precious, non-renewable asset.
So as you finish listening to this deep dive, maybe take this final thought with you. Let it sit with you this week and maybe reshape your focus a bit. You're probably, like most people, focused on how much money you're earning right now, today, or maybe how much you've tucked away in savings.
The immediate numbers.
But try stepping back. Take that long view we talked about. Ask yourself honestly, based on my current habits, how I spend, how I save, how much I'm investing, my level of patience, my willingness to be uncomfortable, how many decades of passive, sustainable income are my actions today actually building for my future?
That's the question.
That shift in focus from earning today to building for decades, that's the core of true financial freedom.